Lesley Dormen, Associate Director of the Writers Studio, is the author of The Best Place to Be, A Novel and Stories, published by Simon & Schuster. Her fiction, articles, and essays have appeared in The Atlantic, Plowshares, Epiphany, 5 Points, Open City, Glimmer Train, Elle, The New York Times, VanityFair.com, Oh, the Oprah Magazine, and Unholy Ghosts, Writers on Depression, among other publications and anthologies. Several of her short stories have been notables in Best American Short Stories. Lesley has received a New York Foundation for the Arts Fellowship in Fiction and is a fellow of the MacDowell Colony and Yaddo. Here's Lesley.
Ooh, hi. I just want to add to that impressive resume that I'm going to be teaching a workshop starting in April through the Writers Studio called Me Too. And if anybody you know is interested, it's going to be writing about trauma. Like, how do you make art out of trauma? But today I'm reading from a novel I'm working on. And I think I'll just tell you the protagonist of the novel is a woman named Marley, a New York City woman approaching her 60th birthday. And her life has basically tumbled out of control. I don't think I need to explain more, because I don't intend to. Okay. By August of that long ago year, I could no longer patch together rent money from the freelance work I'd been hunting up, and I entered an ad for a men's magazine that was looking for an assistant to the photography editor. Imagining something like Esquire, I went to an interview in the magazine's offices on the 6th floor of a nondescript building in the East 20s. I was hired that same day. It turned out to be a skin magazine called Rake, a Playboy wannabe that featured a fairly tame mix of naked girls, interviews, and popular cultural criticism. The words woven around the professionally posed nudes in furry boas and garter belts, their brief bios, something we called girl copy, something we made up monthly to fit on deadline. I worked as the assistant to Wolf, the photo editor, whose contribution to the soft porn print world of New York City in the late 1970s was something he had named the Girl Next Door contest. One of my duties as Wolf's assistant was to open the stacks of envelopes that arrived daily, filled with photographs readers sent in of their naked girlfriends. Wolf had been a Gerard Manley Hopkins scholar in graduate school, but porn was his métier. He believed in something he called grassroots pornography, and though I found his enthusiasm for the amateur Polaroids and prints a wholesome, even admirable thing, I handled the photographs themselves with a gingerly disgust. It wasn't the nakedness or the silly, sometimes embarrassing positions the girls assumed that repelled me. I half understood that I felt a mixture of contempt and pity for their compliant exhibitionism, and that I imagined myself superior to it, though I couldn't necessarily say what was erotic. I didn't see it or feel it in these candid photographs. Anyway, what made me uneasy wasn't the girls, it was their surroundings. Shag rugs and Indian bedspreads, fake leather living room sofas, the occasional fireplace, television stands, and table legs leering voyeuristically from a corner of the frame. My pity and contempt and complicity made me want to avert my eyes. The naked girls and the objects they lived with seemed captives of the 70s, its bad music and quick sex and still vivid images of jungle war. They reminded me that I was a captive right along with them. One day, a girl in one of the Polaroids caught my eye. My gaze lingered a moment on her face, perhaps because she was posed in the anonymous outdoors on a corny but inoffensive beach. Something familiar in the girl's expression. Wasn't she in that movie with the same blonde pigtails? The first film version of Lolita had played in the Art House Theater in my hometown when I had been too young to see it. But on its heels, there had been another go at the famous novel. This was that girl, and I remembered that she had gained some notoriety for a while before disappearing for what seemed like good. In the photograph, she still looked about 12. Had I read Lolita? Had I seen the first movie, the Kubrick one? No and no. Back then, I was still play-acting my replica, the not guilty daughter, keeping the invisible moat safely between me and Mother, me and the rest of the world. I took the photograph into Wolf's office. His feet were up on his desk, and the T-shirt that stretched across his big belly said Budweiser. He was somewhat older than I was, but I couldn't have said by how much. "Who is this?" I demanded. It seemed to me that an irony had been established between Wolf and me that made everything, the magazine and the photographs and Mother and the chaos inside me and Wolf himself, both terrible and absurd, the way I believed adult life to be. Wolf took the photograph from me and looked. Then he studied it through a loop, one eye squeezed shut. When he looked up again, a satisfied smile had spread across his face. "Holy shit," he said. It happened to be a minor talent of mine, recognizing faces. Wolf swung his legs off the desk. "Get me the envelope this came in," he said. "All business now," and I scooted off, feeling slightly important. By mid-afternoon, when Wolf stuck his head into my cubicle, I still hadn't made contact with the purported photographer, but I had located a phone number for him through the return address on the envelope the photograph came in. A high-security prison somewhere in the middle of the country. A little later, Wolf informed me that our boss, the magazine's publisher, had offered to photograph the former movie starlet sex kitten as a centerfold. He had sent her airfare for the weekend and reserved a room at the plaza. I was relieved when Wolf said he'd take the matter from there, and I spent the rest of the day writing picture captions to accompany a photo spread on sex toys. At 6 o'clock, I tidied up my desk and took the subway home. It was summer, and I prayed the air conditioner was working. I was so young, I didn't know what else to pray for. Lolita checked into the plaza that weekend, and late Saturday afternoon, I made my way uptown. Wolf was already at the hotel, charged with recording an hour or so of an interview with her. He thought it was folly to blow magazine money on a faded Lolita for a nostalgia centerfold shoot. But our boss had disagreed. He wanted Lolita on his arm at a dinner that night and in front of the camera first thing the next morning, or the magazine's money men were pulling the plug. No second chances. When I arrived, I learned that, upon checking in, the actress had upgraded herself to a suite. Then she had purchased 2 German Shepherd guard dogs. For protection, she told Wolf. Protection from what? I wondered. Wolf was trying to find someone to clean up. The dogs had shit all over the rosy carpeting. And Lolita was in the bedroom, connected by phone with the federal prison currently hosting her boyfriend. Dirty room service dishes littered the living room. Wolf watched as I took in the scene, and we shared expressions of mock horror. The actress hung up the phone and wiggled an unlit joint at Wolf from the bedroom. He stepped around the litter of clothing and dirty dishes and an empty bottle of vodka to give her a light. It was already 7:30, and she was high and not dressed. She took a deep drag and overturned a grimy-looking makeup bag, its contents spilling onto the crumpled sheets. She sat on the bed Indian style and did her face while Wolf paced around the living room, the dogs whining and pawing at the door to get out. I stood on the threshold of the bedroom and asked her if there was anything I could get her, praying she would say no. "I hope he knows I'm not fucking him," Lolita said to me. "I just hope he knows." Did she mean the publisher or Wolf? Yeah, he knows, Wolf called out from the living room. Make sure you bring it up about the photographer, she called back, because I have special lighting, and only this guy in Santa Cruz knows how to do it right. He's a genius. You fly him in or the shoot's off. I'm not putting myself in the hands of some amateur. When she emerged from the bedroom, she was wearing a short satiny dress, high heels, and around her neck the fur boa I had brought with me in case it was needed for the shoot. Ta-da! She twirled kind of ironically and didn't even wait for Wolf's face to react. The next second the dogs were scrambling all over her and she was laughing. When she laughed, the blonde cunning in her face disappeared and she looked about 12 years old. So let's do it, Wolf said. Whoops, I forgot to pee, said Lolita. Here, hold this. She dumped a pack of cigarettes, a lipstick, and a bottle of something prescription into my hand. That's thyroid medication for your information, she said, halfway to the bathroom, with her skirt already bunched up in both hands, no panties. The photography shoot never took place. Lolita refused to work with the photographer the magazine had hired, and the young woman was swiftly returned to the anonymity from which she had emerged. The magazine folded a few months later. During my magazine days in the 1970s, I didn't see any connection between me and those grief-spooked Vietnam vets coming home, between me and those women gathered in apartments around Manhattan trying to wake each other up, between me and Lolita. I was a young woman who dressed carefully, who believed in the costume of self she wore every day, who affected a cool aplomb, who wrote girl copy, who hid her ambition and let no one see that she was seething inside. That's the thing about incest girls. We are Lolita or we are plain Jane. We are sexual hellraisers. We are church mice. We are compelled by sex as long as it is with the absolute wrong person. We are secretly in love with your husband. We are cheaters and we are cheated on. We have orgasms every time, or we never had an orgasm. Or we are hit or miss in the orgasm department. We were born into unhappy households, or we were born into households about to be made unhappy, or we were born into households whose unhappiness was the secret behind the happiness. We pay our own unhappiness forward into our own households, or yours, or we stomp the life out of our unhappiness and kick it to the curb. We are survivors, not victims. We kill ourselves before we are 30. We are not survivors or victims. We have simply prevailed. We wear an invisible sign that says, exploit me, or one that says, enter at your own risk. Check us out in photos. We are tiny and thin. We have long legs and are close to 6 feet. We are flat-chested or we are curvy. We are wound around some man. We look as chaste as Emily Dickinson. We have sad eyes and big hair. We look like the girl who always plays the best friend. We've been called glamorous since we were 12. We drink. We never drink. We take drugs. We have never taken a drug. We have daddy issues. We have uncle issues. We have nightmares. We have fantasies about daddies and uncles. We never remember our dreams. What I didn't know then was that an incest girl with a single voice, speaking freely, is insisting on itself, moment to moment, telling her story with the urgency of just the moment, then telling it again, louder, braver, truer, could be the source of so much power. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Thank you.